a little bit about myself as I've described, and really a little bit more perspective on GSK and Procter and Gamble, but GSK as a whole. In fact, in preparing and reflecting about this discussion for a lot of you out there that are thinking about your first move into a career and a career opportunity with a company, there's always this debate. Do I go big corporate? Do I go small? Do I go consultancy? And personally, from a personal experience, as you've seen, I've chosen big corporate. And in fact, if I think about only having worked for two companies, that's one way of looking at it. But actually, if I did the math over my career, I think I've held 25 different positions, and that's just basically moving jobs into different roles every 2 years, because the companies are big, offer great opportunities, especially multinational company. And actually, the topic I chose to cover today, in speaking with Colette, which would be perhaps intriguing for you, is as working for a multinational pharmaceutical company, what does it mean to operate globally? And actually, let's talk about that further now. And actually, when I think about my experiences, and really that's what I wanted to do, was share with you what perhaps you couldn't Google and couldn't find online, some personal experiences and having worked at country levels in operations and marketing and commercial, to consolidating what I've learned working at a global level and some of the big points going forward. But now let's stop and really think about the areas I'd like to get into here. And really there's the three W points here is why. Why is the global market so attractive to multinational companies? But where are the regional opportunities? Because it's a big world and the opportunities vary across the globe. And then finally, what defines your global business plan, and what defines your plan to really operate at a global level to be successful? So let's start with the global market. My gosh, it's approaching $1 trillion. That's an enormous amount, and a fantastic opportunity, and the reason why it's such an attractive world to operate globally as a multinational company. And actually, when you look at the pharmaceutical business and the healthcare space, I'm sure you all have experiences, no matter where you are, you're in touch with the world. It's at your fingertips online. But actually, when you look at the pharmaceutical and healthcare business, it's very localized because, care happens on the ground. Patients, are at home, suffering a condition, see a physician, move to treatment, and work their way through the treatment pathway. So it's a very localized market and very different dynamics as you go. So $1 trillion as where the global market is estimated today for the pharmaceutical business. But of course, where's the big pockets? You have 35% of that in North America, predominantly the U.S. 25% of that's in Europe, predominantly in the big 5 countries across Europe, which we say is Germany, Italy, Spain, France, and the UK. 10% in Asia, which is mostly a big chunk of that is China. And Japan is a standalone market. Wow, 8%, a big market to consider. And then Latin America and a mix. But really, when you think about these 5 different regions, this is really how wonderful it is to work at a global level, because all those different areas operate under different dynamics. And really the question is, how do you actually deliver a global plan? How do you operate globally with such a diverse market? But before I get into that, let's pause for a minute and really think about what's driving that shift to such a big market. Where is it going from $1 trillion? Estimates say that it's going to keep growing at 5-6%. And in the next 20, 40 years, when you're retiring perhaps, you'll see a $1.5 trillion market. Massive shift in the age demographic, as you are well aware, and I'm sure you're well read up on, where today the global pharmaceutical market with patients utilizing the system was estimated to be at about 5% of patients over 45 to 50 will grow to 15% by the year 2025. Since the year 2000. So quite a shift in 25 years that will take place in terms of feeding that demographic that's going to be seeking healthcare. What are some of the other areas that are driving the growth of the industry? Well, you find that more and more individuals are willing to invest in their life and in really prolonging their life and their well-being. And you see a higher level of disposable income spent on healthcare. You see the demand from employees to employers to offer competitive programs that give them access to healthcare. And finally, though, you also see a growth in the number of patients that just have the affordability to access healthcare, and that comes in the different markets and around the world. And how are GSK positioned really to really compete as a multinational company? The demographics are simple here. Over 100,000 employees globally, generating 30 billion pounds of revenue across the world, with operations in 86 countries. That's enormous. If you look across the global map, GSK is well positioned to really offer anybody a fantastic global career. And I think what's really beautiful, and I believe is a great part of the company that I've been at now for 11 years, is the foundation and the culture and the belief, the behavior that drives the company. And it's all around three areas. First is innovation. That's not just innovation of medicines and innovation of new healthcare, but that's actually innovation in everything we do. Innovation from how we move our production line faster. Innovation from how we as marketing leaders at a global level bring new ideas to market, more efficient channels to reach the customer, different technology. So it's really widespread across the entire company, no matter what you're doing. Under the umbrella of creating innovation to drive performance. At the end of the day, it's a corporation driven by shareholders. Shareholders have a demand for value generation, and what we do at the end of the day is twofold. One, of course, to deliver performance, but really underlying that is doing what's best for the patient, and that's really what drives the last bit, which is trust. In reality, while we're trying to innovate, while we're trying to drive performance, it's based on a foundation of doing the right thing. Doing the right thing to make sure that GSK is seen as a credible, trusted, multinational pharmaceutical company and leader in healthcare. And actually, the foundation of having long-term success.